Communities get angry when they see drug use out in the open. If we don't see it, if we turn our backs, it doesn't exist, right? But what if we flip the script and ask, what is the role of the public in education, awareness, and support for people who use drugs? In this final episode of our Parenting and Drug Use series, we ask the difficult questions about the public as the parent. What has happened to neighbours looking out for each other? You will hear the unusual perspectives of a ward councillor, a traditional leader and healer, a member of the Central City Improvement District, and someone who works daily with people who use drugs. If the public takes on the role of the parent, can we reduce harm for people who use drugs and protect the public? I'm your host for this episode, Anke Gontsana, and you are listening to Say It Anyway, the Narcosa podcast, where we flip the script on the conventional. This podcast deals with some difficult issues and may not be suitable for sensitive listeners or young children. Say It Anyway, the Narcosa podcast.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. It's called Say It Anyway, the Narcosa podcast. I'm really excited to have you all here today talking about such an important topic. Because today we're flipping the script and we're talking about the public as the parent. So what if we saw our community as the parent when we're talking about substance use and drugs? So I want to start off just by going around the room. You say your name and what brings you here today? What makes it important for you to be talking about this topic? So maybe we can start on this side.
Thank you so much for hosting us and having us. My name is Lukholo Ngamlana. I'm the traditional health practitioner. What interests me is because of that the issue of substance abuse. It's one of the issues, social issues, that it's really making things difficult for our communities because it increases the level of crime. And of course, it also harms young people that we see as the future.
Thank you.
Lovely stuff. Anka, thank you so much for the invitation. It's good to be here with you and with the guest. My name is Ashley Potts. I am the ward councillor in Mitchell's Plain for West Region Rocklands, Ward 81. What brings me here really is the topic of conversation. It's something that is very dear to my heart. Working with those that are struggling with substance use disorders has always been a part of me. I'm very, very interested in the conversation because I believe there's a lot more awareness that needs to be created around the topic, both for those that are needing the help and for those that are, so to speak, affected by it. Yeah, so exciting to be here.
Thank you.
Morning, Anka. My name is Khulula, Gontsana. I'm from TBHIV Care. I'm a peer coordinator. My interest to be here today is to show awareness, to the community, the parents, that community needs to be involved in harm reduction and not being judgmental. They need to be part of the solution. That is law enforcement and community. And religious sector also needs to come to the party in order to fulfill the mandate of harm reduction.
Thank you.
Morning, Zanka. I'm from CCID, Auxiliary Social Worker. So we offer services in the CBD to the homeless community. We're basically their parent in the community, but we do have a lot of stakeholders. The reason that I'm here is, just to have this conversation, the public know, what we are doing and also what the path is with regards to harm reduction. Now everybody can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you all here. And I just love what she said, like, you are basically the parent of all, within the community. So excited to have you here and just talking today. We also touch on your listeners, so it's really important. And I want to start by just looking at what does the average community member be about drugs in the community and people who use drugs. I'm not looking at any. I'm reading the question.
Yeah, so for me, I think parents and community sees it as a nuisance. It's a problem. It's a vice. It is something that causes destruction. It causes damage, and it breaks communities and families apart. That is the crux of their perceptions from where I stand. I see it on a daily basis, and so they don't understand necessarily, and so hence you can't almost blame them for having a perception like that. A lot more psychoeducation needed.
Yeah, just to add on my side as well, people, they believe that young people or whoever that uses drugs, is their own doing. They do it because it's their choice. They do it because they don't want to listen and they don't want to be controlled. And of course, the issue of peer pressure as well amongst young people. And we as traditional health practitioners, we also see it as somebody who's lacking spiritual belonging in the community. So there's a lot that we believe that because people are no longer following their rituals and their cultures, and so they're kind of lost in terms of spirituality and the guidance by the ancestors.
That's very interesting. And I'm just curious on the point that you mentioned where you say community sees it like, it's your own doing. They gazetted itself. Is that like overall, like that's what we see within the communities from everyone else? Is that what you see?
So it was in the community. So if you're talking about in the house when it starts, they don't know what is happening. If they're uneducated around, they don't know where to go to when it happens, and so the isolation starts there. Person goes out, and then the community starts isolating that person as well. So the person, when they go into isolation, we could, from a trauma perspective, when they go into isolation, they go into survival mode. That's why they're going to go look for people outside to connect with or to a sense of belonging, and then it spirals from there. So, yeah.
Khulula.
I'm
I'm just curious, right? Does our community know what harm reduction is?
I would say yes and no, but I think a big chunk of our community don't know what is harm reduction. As I was preparing my thoughts to be here, I thought of the mid-90s when HIV was, spreading rapidly. Now, remember the religious sector, they were talking about abstinence, until I think Desmond Tutu said some words that condoms saves lives. Now, I took that to my context where I am now, is that harm reduction saves lives. Now, the community doesn't know that, For instance, when we are mapping new sites, where we go where injectors are, basically, Now, what happens is that we are avoiding residential areas because that is where we get a lot of opposition. We prefer under the bridge, we prefer informal settlements, we prefer like your transport interchange areas, So because there we don't clash with community, So I think there's more awareness that is needed into schools, in schools, and also churches, communities, and yeah. So I think all those people needs to come to that.
So because you're not going to the residential areas, does that mean that they don't know what harm reduction is?
Definitely, because we are not for abstinence. We meet people where they are. These people are not planning to stop using substances, but we're bringing healthcare services to that community, because these people, are vulnerable. They can't go by themselves to the clinics, we must accompany them in order for them to get, for instance, in Mitchell's Plain, the clinic next to the police station, they need an ID when a person is going into the clinic. Most of our clients, they don't have an ID. So if we accompany them, where they are able to get into the clinic and get services.
And I think that's where then what I would say the gap is. For example, he has mentioned that they go where people are and they're working with those who are not willing to stop using substances immediately. Because then the understanding of the community is they are supporting
Definitely.
those who are using that and enabling them to use drugs. So that's where then the gap and the lack of awareness is in our community. So that's why the harm reduction, it's not really known and supported in most communities. Yes.
So the gap that we need to fill is to take it to the residential communities where there is maybe some resistance, but it's having the conversation anyway. Saying it anyway.
Yeah. I think we need to have more dialogues in the community, IMBs or, all those healthcare workers, and people who are, whether ex-users or users, and maybe those who are on methadone also to come to the party, like the example you were making, people that are functional, but they are still using, because of the opiate substitution therapy, So I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of awareness to communities,
And sorry, Ashley, I just want to ask this question. It's a burning question. Is there something that you can say to someone who's listening, who's from the residential communities, who's never heard about harm reduction? Can you just quickly explain what it is with it in simple terms? If possible.
I think the example I made earlier about a condom, because people were not stopping, having sex, even though there was a lot of preaching about abstinence. And then the condom came as sort of prevention, to spread to stop the prevention, the spread of HIV, So that was harm reduction, basically. Condom was harm reduction. So basically, we have the needle syringe program that we have that is the source of the spread of HIV and hepatitis C, So we bring needles to the people that are using, substance in order to curb the spread of HIV and other bloodborne diseases, So when the community sees us having the guys coming to us to give us the used needles, the aim, it's mostly to curb the spread of HIV and hepatitis. So they give us the old needles, we go and discard it. And then we give them clean needles and other equipment that comes with that so that they don't share needles, because that's where the spread of these diseases is in that needle. Yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah, I wanted to speak about community inclusion, but I just wanted to add on to what KG is saying. And the reality is that when we talk about the abstinence model, we are almost trying, and I say this respectfully, but trying to say it can be stopped if we stop doing it. But the reality is we know this as parents. You tell your child no, and you don't give enough collateral to help them understand why no, they're going to do it anyway. And so you say abstain and you don't give them an alternative or you don't help them along that journey, they're going to do it in your absence. So the reality is with the needle exchange program is we are giving them an alternative and helping them. And at the same time, we are helping the country to prevent, like with HIV, AIDS, the pandemic grew, it became so bad in the middle and late 90s. But then when the preventative measure was brought about, you saw a reduction in it because people was condomizing. And by doing so, they were stopping the spread of HIV and AIDS. Yeah. So, so I think that is critical. But coming back to the community inclusion, I think the reality of bringing harm reduction to a more community a localized setting is making community a part of that process. Even if I could speak to a group of parents or community, I'd say to them, especially if you don't understand it and you are irritated with it, you are angry with it, come and sit and listen to what is happening in the life of Connie or Willie or whoever the boy is, and come and listen to the KGs that are producing the alternative measure. And by doing so, I guarantee you are going to start to change your perception, because they are not enabling people to use. There is a exit strategy, but that is not the intent to start the process. It is to help them to be able to manage the illness of the use or abuse of the substance, and also the spread of the diseases.
I think also very interesting on what you say is that people should come and be included in the conversation. So yes, maybe they're completely against it. They're like, no, absolutely not. And they engage in the debate. They engage in the debate, but then they're leaving that setting and now they're entering another setting with maybe their sister or someone else, and they start talking about it. And they'll say, I'm completely against it. And that person then has a question like, interesting. That could possibly help this person. Yeah. And you're just spreading awareness, even if the person is against it. So like you were saying, that gap with residential community, even if you're just going there and they're against it, they're still spreading that message.
No, I was just going to say, maybe while KG was speaking, while they are sharing the needles, talking about the harm reduction and so on, I think you should also emphasize the point that in the same note, they are also doing the awareness. Because even though those people are not willing to stop to use drugs, but the awareness is there as well on the substances and the danger that is doing and so on. Besides just providing them needles so that they prevent the blood sharing and all that stuff, but the awareness should also be emphasized that is also part of the campaign.
Yeah, true. So, with looking at our public as the parent, what would you say? I'm looking at you, Urban. Do you say that the public is leaning more towards punishment than protection?
In my work in the homeless sector, you see it a lot where family members just come and they bring this person and they walk away. And they leave it up to you. They see you as the person that's going to do everything for this person. So I don't want to, or somebody would call in and say, I've got a neighbor, can you go out to the neighbor? So it's like this othering, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to. So you see that a lot in the community. So, yeah. It's quite frustrating for us in the profession when you see that, because it's important to have them part of it, so that we can at least have some. But now you're isolating that person more, in the trauma and just.
So just the sense of community is already lost because it's a you problem. It's not us problem.
It's You are a social worker or social auxiliary worker, you need to fix it.
Yeah.
But Derek, I want you to add on what he's saying, that the family would push the person away. I think we mustn't overlook the pain, that the family has suffered, because of this KG that is on drugs, we have a lot of stories, that, and also it has become a problem. We have there's a gentleman in Valvo. He came to a point where he stopped injecting. He stopped smoking. He was in the shelter there in Belleville, but then he can only stay at the shelter for 6 months, and then after that, they kick him out. Now we ask him, Chief, why don't you go back home? He said, I can't go back there, because of gangsterism. The family doesn't want to hear anything from. Now, a person, there are a lot of cases like that, whereby a guy tells us, I have stopped everything, but then there is no support. That is the major problem. And after a few months, that guy, when you see him, is down on the street and revolving door.
Yeah.
He looks very bad.
So it was just a cycle at the end of the day. Because
Yeah.
families don't.
Because there's no support. There's no support at all.
When you say community, the parent, I would say there must be maybe a review on the definition of parent. If we can understand the parent to be not just the provider, the protector, or the enforcer, this authoritarian figure, then maybe, yes, we can have that essence of saying community be the parent of our substance use disorders or the sector or the context. Currently, the parent is in the face of substance use is the punisher. They are wanting to be the authoritarian. They're wanting to make sure that they can maintain peace and order. If we can shift it, like within the context of psychoeducation, if we can shift that role of the parent or the definition of the parent to the nurturer, the supporter, the one that provides a healthier environment to digest everything that is coming within that context, then it will be awesome. But we have a ratio with the Medical Research Council that speaks of, well, in my time when I was with Drug Center, for every one user, there are 19 people that is affected. Now, if that is the reality, then why are we focusing on the one? Obviously, the 19 is somehow needing to get a little bit more awareness. I was almost going to say a wake up, but awareness. Because if we gave attention, and I did this, I'll talk about it some other time, but I did this with a group of gangsters and gang parents. So, and the reality, if we focus on the 19 and gave them the proper tools and understanding of how to communicate different, how to work with a person that is dependent on the substance, then I guarantee you, even treatment won't be necessary for that one. Because now it's like the research shows with Joanne Hari with the kind of when people go for a hip replacement, they get pumped in with diamorphine for weeks. And if the theory of the chemical hooks is the reality, then they should come back absolute junkies. Addict behavior should be prevalent, but because they just come back and to go into their families where there is inclusion, there is support, there is all those healthy benefits, they just go off the diamorphine or the drug, the substance that they've been using when they were getting the hip replacement. Yeah, and we don't have that. There's a big void in that regard.
And yes, I think just to add as well is that I think one of the reasons they lean more on punishing, it's because of the lack of understanding, the lack of awareness why people are using substances, and the lack of support even in terms of the structures within the communities. For example, your drug centers within the communities, there are very few, for example. So then that leads people not understanding, if I support, how do I support? And also traditionally in some houses that's been seen as a curse, that your family is being cursed, your family is being witched, so that you don't have anybody progressing in the family and so on. So that's why then they lean more on the punishing side, to say that you have done wrong and you're putting our family on the spot, because it's not only about you as the user, but it's also affecting the community and how the community is, how your family is seen in the community and all that stuff.
So that's all that they can do. All the financial say, that's a you problem. Don't think that our family.
That's correct.
And our family name.
And the question is probably why. Is it because of the stigma and the reality of what the stigma is going to almost reflect off them? It's an embarrassment. And so, that is a concern, because the stigma by and large is so a huge problem. It is, in many ways, I can see it evolving. I got a few churches in the community of Mitchell's Plain where they are inviting the people that are using drugs. And I'm at one stage, I'm begging for it, but I was almost shocked when I saw it. And I shouldn't be, because this is what they're praying for. This is what you're working towards. If they can embrace it, we will find a lot more people feeling supported and helped.
And that's a nice example of that this idea that your neighbor is still watching over your kids. That's a great example of it. But then we also see that families themselves are turning their backs on the user. Yeah. So I think the big question is, does this really exist within all of our communities where your neighbors are still watching over the kids and they're still caring for the kids as though it's their own?
The fact of the matter is no. To be quite frank, that's not the case. We can't run away from the fact that the families, even themselves, are no longer there, if I can put it that way. Because of many reasons, because of psychosocial, because of economical survival and so on. So everybody it's for their own, for themselves. And of course, how the families, even the individuals within the community, see each other, because they've changed the language. Now the language is, you can't really, what do they call, discipline my child. You're not the parent of my child, I'm the parent. So it means then the language has changed. The support that has always been there within the neighbors and so on, it's no longer there. So they would say, mind your own business. Whether I don't have a child who's using substances or a family member, maybe I might have a family member's physically challenged and so on. They'll say, no, when will you look after your family member's physically challenged? One busy concerned with my child who's using substances and so on. And they will talk about hatred, that you hate my family, you hate my... So then that is no longer there, and it's really destroying our families in many ways.
Yeah. And Herbert, how do you think harm reduction assists within your work? So with CCID, I asked you this question earlier on before we were recording, like, is it security? What is CCID? And you gave me some insights. So maybe just explain for people listening, what is CCID in totality? Yeah. And then where does harm reduction fit in, and in terms of your work?
Okay, so in CCID, we've got urban department, and we've got a communications department, and then we also have a social department, then a youth security department. So I know there's trainings that's being done with our security with regards to harm reduction, and there's always trainings, but we will offer the trainings to them to bring them on board. And you can see now where it was before, you can see now there's a big change on how they're working in the city. So they will find someone that's using, they wouldn't say to the person, yeah, you need to stop, focusing on the drug, but they would say, okay, finish using maybe, and then you move on. Whereas before it would have been a totally different case. So,
and that's just because of training.
Yeah. And we also obviously offering programs. We work with TBHIV Care collaborating, to make sure that we get as much needles from our streets, because of our stakeholders. When they see a needle, they're worried. So we work with TBHIV Care and offering a feeding program alongside the needle exchange, so that we can get as much needles from our streets in town.
And what would you say to a resident who sees needles on the street and says, this is proof that it's not working?
What do they do when they see the labels?
You can feel you can feel it when they see a needle, the hatred and the frustration that comes out when they talk to you. It's almost like you were using that needle a minute ago, the way they talk to you. There's just no filter when it comes to that. And so we would just say, we've got a team, or we'll call TBHIV Care. We've got a fear project as well. They trained in picking up needles as well. And we'll get the right people to come and pick up the needle. It's also with regards to with the drug as well. Sometimes how people are used. Before, I think, there's a lot of...
There's a perception that when I touch that needle, I'm going to be contaminated. Can you help?
There's a lot of stigma.
Yeah. No, I think You can't touch the needle by your hand, There is a picker, or you must have a glove at least, This might not be accurate, but hepatitis can stay in that needle for a couple of weeks, so don't touch a needle with your hand. With us, TBHIV Care, we have a hotline number whereby if you see needles, you can take a picture and send it to us. Then we will respond. Recently, we have launched with Nakosa, the Sharp app. There is a link that is being spread around. So if you see needles, go into the link, you take a picture, you send it to us. So we'll come and do a cleanup of that needle. But also, currently in Wynberg, we have CPF people that are doing the cleanups, like in the morning and in the evening. In Belleville, we have a cleanup ambassador. In town with Streetscape, there's a cleaning that is happening. And all over, man, we have cleanup ambassadors in Woodlands, Lentegee. We have people who are picking up needles to bring to us when we are in the area. So there is a platform when we see needles lying around. But there are various reasons why needles are lying around, because a user would be sitting down, sorting out his bag. Most we're working with a moving community. They always have their bags. And now police will come, or law enforcement or security, while the guy's sorting himself out. And then that guy will have to run and leave those needles there. So there are various reasons why there's needles in the public space. But also when we give users needles, clean needles, we give them what we call the personal sharp container. After he's done using the needle, he puts it in that. He can put at least 15 needles and close it, It's not harmful to the community, yeah.
So that mitigates that risk.
Yes. Just a couple of months ago in Belleville South, at a school, they saw 2 pink needles right at the corner of the yard of the school. It was a big thing. And we don't even have a site there, But then we had to go to the school, with the psychosocial team, to go and speak to the kids, when they see a needle. In Tafelsag, it was on Facebook that the kids were, wanted to stab each other with a needle, So this awareness that we're talking about, needs to be out there. I think there must be a harm reduction curriculum at a primary school for prevention, because we are reacting now, But I think we need to think, or I don't know, the policymakers, But I think if we can have such information, at primary school and so on, and also when a child sees a needle, how to react and what to do,
Because that's also reminding me about this instance, just something personal. I was talking to this lady. I had just met her. She doesn't know what I do in my professional capacity. And she was talking about where she's living, and it's a residential area of southern suburbs. And she was saying, these vans, they come and they drop off these needles, and I'll see it around. What about my children? My children don't play in the road, but I see it. What would happen if my child were to go outside? So it's very important. I just want to bring it back to that residential comment that you made, that they have that awareness around what is this? Why is it happening? What can I do if I do see an eagle, like you just mentioned now? So it's so important for our listeners also to just pay attention and to be aware of what's available, because there's a reason that this is being done. So that's a very important point that you mentioned.
Because we had a situation in Wynberg. You know what we told them? You can remove us here, but these people won't stop using drugs. And they will buy needles from the pharmacy. And there will be no one to do the cleanups of the needles. So we need the community to be part of this, and to know what to do with the needle. Imagine a situation where You see, we have most of the dust bins. Then maybe next to it, in a community, there is one for needles. Such a, an idea where they get a needle, they wear a glove, pick up the needle, throw it there. Community working together with the organization, that is doing the program,
Yeah. And Lukholo, how does traditional healing respond to people who are struggling with drug use? How is it seen?
All right. I think, as I've mentioned before, is that we as traditional health practitioners, there is no training that specifically deals with drugs. However, we do get clients who comes to us, but when they come to us, they will not talk about drugs and so on. But you can see the symptoms, like the person is craving and so on. And of course, we do the spiritual reading. Then we look at this person and we discover that, yes, so this person is using drugs, and we dig deeper. What could be the reason spiritually for this person to be using drugs? And we'll do what we call traditional counseling with the person, trying to understand the background of the person, trying to understand the background of the family as well. And then we'll discover that it happens that sometimes one has got a calling. But then the person was confused, and more especially the young people, because they will say that I'm still young to have a calling and so on. So they end up not knowing what to do. They don't see where they fit within the community. And then they end up using drugs. So that's one of the things. And we do have herbs. I'm not going to say that they heal or they cure people who are using substances, but we do have herbs that we give to people so that they don't crave much of drugs. For example, I will speak of isipaga nompezo, which are traditional herbs. And then we also do the cleaning, the cleansing of the body, meaning the detoxing of the person. And we'll take through that person through some sessions, be with the person so that the person understands himself. And then that person connects with his ancestors so that he is independent of the outside influence. Because if you are connected spiritually and you know your background, you know yourself, it means then you will solely depend on yourself, not on the peer occupation, on the peer pressure from outside. So that's how we deal with it. And then where there is a need for referral, we then do the referral as traditional health practitioners, because traditional healing, it's not an isolation within the community. We do work with the facilities. We do work with the organizations. We got some trainings from TBHIV Care and other organizations as well. So we are working with them, but most of the cases we look at it spiritually. We look at it, the understanding of the person. We look at connecting that person with the ancestors, and for that person to understand him, and also to talk about how is this affecting his family, and how will it affect the generation to come, because he died or she passed away while he's using substances and so on. So how type of an ancestor will that person become, and yeah. So basically, that's how we're dealing with it. And of course, you understand the issues of drugs as well. With us, it also goes, we do have some, if I can call it drugs, sniff. Yes, we do have some sniff that we're using and so on. But then we train our novices to use it in a good, wellness, spiritual way, and for them not to harm themselves, and for them to understand as well how it can harm themselves as well while they're using it spiritually. So those are some of the things that we do as traditional health practitioners.
I'm just curious. So I hear what you're saying, but does harm reduction factor in the at all, or it's a no?
At this stage, no, it's not one of the things that we talk about, because it's not something that our communities are familiar with it. Even the traditional health practitioners themselves, they're not familiar with it. I'm familiar with it because I worked for Narcosa, so I was close. And so I understand it, but it's not something that does.
Do you think that shift will come eventually? And maybe not.
Hopefully with our awareness, because I think the awareness, it's a very strong, it's a powerful tool. So, for example, if we conduct awareness with different stakeholders and not just target the community in general. For example, if I can refer to what people call amapara in the communities, if they are using substances and so on, one of the first people they will come to is the traditional health practitioners, because they're comfortable coming to the traditional health practitioners and so on. So if we equip the traditional health practitioners and so on, so that shift will be there, because the traditional health practitioner will be working with that client and the family of the client. So therefore, then they will be linked then to the harm reduction programs. And for example, I'm working with the Town 2 clinic because they've got, what's that program? Okay, I forgot, but it's around drugs and substances and so on. So I would refer my clients to them if I discover that my herbs are not ready, and then this person needs more than what I can offer. Yeah.
I'm curious. So if the public is the parent, but that's our topic thing. If the public is the parent, are we bad parents right now? Kids are on the stage and we pretending to not see them. Ashley, I see you burn his.
Yeah, it's a kind of a question that you put your foot in it. Yeah, you know it's going to meet you in the back. In what we're seeing in society today, because of the kind of almost, I can't have this. The stigma is too bad. My family's going to think bad of me. The school is going to think bad of me. The principal. It's just so many wrongs because the stigma has made it even harder for people. So parent has been bad parents. Or community has been bad parents.
Talking
Community has been a bad parent if they assume their role as a parent. So, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that they lack the understanding and the resources or awareness around what needs to be done. Once they gain that insight, and I think we need to have more of these conversations to help them to become a little more comfortable. Yeah. So that, like you were saying, it's they feel comfortable coming to the traditional healer because they know he's open to speak to it. So if every parent within community can adopt that sense of, come and speak to me. You know, I'm Auntie Sheila standing by the gate and you see me every day here. So, and when you come to me, you know that and you see that in some communities, and that's why in many respects, I do believe that it's evolving and becoming a little bit better. And a community can be the parent to substance use disorders or the whole understanding within the sector. And once they adopt that or embrace it, we will see a lot more of those that are struggling with drug use come links the help shift from what we call the kind of pre-contemplative to contemplative state, where they very ambivalent. I don't need help in the pre-contemplative. When they come to a place where that community as the parent is there, now they start shifting towards the contemplative state, where they're saying, this is going to kill me eventually. I need help. And they accept the damage that it's causing to both them and their surroundings. Yeah. So, yes, they've been bad as community, being the parent, but it's shifting.
I'm not proud to say this, but yes. Yeah, it's bad. I must say that you're bad parenting. Of course, we cannot isolate this from the psychosocial issues because our families are broken and we can't run away from that. And when you look at the parents that are there, they're coming from single parenting families. I'm not saying all the single parent, but you get to families where there are no, there is no family, if I can put it that way. So then this then shows into our young people. And I understand not only young people are using substances, even the elders are using substances and so on. And by so doing, they're not setting good example to the young people. I think it goes back to what I've said, is that now people are focusing on on themselves, not on the public. What happens in the public? So we have kind of now adopted the abnormal to be normal, because also people, they feel there is no support from government, even though it's communities. For example, people know the drug laws that are there in the communities and so on, but they feel if I go and report, I won't be a victim and so on, even though they can try and make campaigns and try to fight. Once you try to do that in the community, in your space, you will be targeted. Because that person will say that I don't have an income, I'm not employed and so on. So the one way for me to survive is to sell drugs and so on. And then we become then at parenting as community.
And I think you're touching beautifully on my next question, which I was actually going to ask to Herbert. But it was how much of drug use in our communities is rooted in untreated trauma and socioeconomic stuff.
So what you were saying, Lukholo, so it's so true. Yes, it's bad parenting. You want to offer assistance to the drug user, but what's happening in that family? There's the unresolved trauma there, and they're already in survival mode, so they can't even see, what to do going forward, or what's happening with the child, because they themselves is struggling. So socioeconomic, psychosocial in the family. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be in the family structure, needs to be sorted out in order to get to that person. So it's bad parenting, but also I'm on the fence as well, because in the houses there's a lot of social ills happening.
And if we think about our communities, right, are they accessing psychosocial support?
There's some is accessing, some is also managing. They're also part of using substances in the house. If you think about the ones, the weekend drinkers at house at parties. Yeah. So so it's you can understand why some people would be. It's very complicated when it comes to people, because there's different. You have to take it case by case. That's our work. You can't just say, okay, this is what is happening. You have to take it case by case, because every family has their own psychological or social problems that they're having in their family. So some of them can't focus really on that child that's going through the drug use. If harm reductions programs are brought, they probably don't even know it because they're so busy, getting through the day, eat hand to mouth. So I'm kind of on the fence with that one, because you have to take people where they are.
Yeah. It's such an exciting topic. I think you asked earlier, are they accessing? So there's a question maybe should be shifted around. Is it available? Because I see so many wanting it, but it's not that accessible. So I ran when I was at the Cape Town Drug Counselling Centre, I did an episode where we went and did the family education. So we went out into communities, and the people were hungry for it. They were like soaking it up, because it's a kind of a case of you can't teach a hungry child. So you're telling this child he's starving, he's got all the socioeconomic problems, there's trauma in the house. Now you want to tell him stop using drugs. I was almost going to say, check. I did say, but that's what's in his head. What are you talking to me about? No, but if you would take a step back or two and you say, okay, let's help them within their context, and all the while you start to bring to them the understanding of what realities exist within the sector, or in this arena of substance use disorders. And so there's just this multi-layered onion that needs to be peeled off. Strip for strip. But I do believe that within society and within our city or within our country, we are not making enough psychoeducation available. If we did, we would be seeing a lot more attention going to the 19 of the one that is affected. And when it goes to them, they would have a better understanding of how they can actually, as community, be the better. And then it's going to be, I'm excited about that. Because once we equip them, then we will almost have, what did the church say? It's like a revolution. It's like a revival. Because now any person, and I'd want to see it start by the people in authority, that they would start to accept that they're in a position for a reason, but now they need to be equipped to be able to communicate differently. Then we won't have what we had in Wynberg, because there was a lack of education and lack of understanding. And so you think chasing it away is going to help the problem. No, it's going to only make it worse. But if you embraced it and you allowed yourself, open yourself up to getting equipped, then you're going to see a lot of shifts taking place.
Yeah. We can see it in health sector. You'll see there's a drop of people accessing services at the hospital. You'll see it in prisons. We do get a lot of people, so there's probably something else, but there's a lot of people not getting jobs. They can't get jobs because because of spliff that they used when they were young. Then they can't access like simple jobs. They can't access because that gate is put in front of them. So with if harm reduction is in place, it will just open up a different society.
Yes. I was going to talk more about the availability of psychosocial support in our communities. I think that is what is lacking. I do believe, though, that we do have structures that can play that role. For example, the churches should not only be seen as a place where you learn and hear about David and Moses. So that should be a space whereby people are getting the support. We do have people like myself. I'm a traditional leader. So we do have imbizos. We do have community gatherings. We do have meetings with the families and so on. So if we can, again, equip the individuals who are key within the community, so we can be able to help lots of people. I was talking now about the issues of circumcision and so on. I'm the traditional surgeon myself. So you'll find that during the season, I see over 50 families. So I use that space to support those families, to support what we call the single parents and so on. So if we can get lots more of Lukholos, there's a lot that can happen in the community. So we need to, even with our traditional ceremonies and so on, you get lots of families that are there and so on. Of which these people, most of them, they belong to one family. So if we can start having sessions there and then inviting people to come to us as individuals, as traditional leaders, as traditional health practitioners, there's a lot. Instead of depending on government and a few organizations that are there. So capacity.
And that comes down to the community's fair to take that responsibility also. So the responsibility also sits with us to bring more people into the conversation and to equip more people to take the conversation outwards and to take the message outwards.
Can I pick up on Kanye said, the church being a big opportunity space or a mosque or a center such as that? I want to challenge the ministers out there and the imams out there. I mean, the church, the mosque, those places are probably one of the richest in our country. Because there's teachers, there's social workers, there's media, there's police, there's lawyers. Amalaza. So stop preaching on a Sunday. We know who Jesus is and we know who Allah is. And I say this, not arrogantly, but I'm saying use the resources in your church and start saying to the social worker, because she has or he has the experience of speaking to a context. Let's talk about substance use disorders. Can you use the pulpit on Sunday to come and talk about harm reduction? Because then you're addressing a population. So thanks for that. I'm going to start preaching that a little bit more and making that door available. Because yes, we know where we need to stand with the Almighty and and for me, the Lord Jesus Christ is my Savior. And so I profess it, I live it. But we must start using our resources to be able to equip people better. And I think, that's the start of another revival. Thank you for that.
Amen. Amen.
So I'd like to shift our conversation to decriminalization. Right? There's been a lot of debate around decrim in South Africa. So, open conversation. Where do you stand with decrim?
If it's done correctly.
What is correct?
Having relations in fact.
Yeah. I don't want to look at her because
We've seen, as Portugal,
Portugal.
we've seen numbers coming down, HIV, and just how much better it is on that side. If we can get it right. I don't ever want to go. I'm always scared to go to when I have to talk about this and all of that. But if you decriminalize and you don't focus on, the police won't focus on getting the users. They will rather focus on trying to find out where's the root. The focus would change if they decriminalize it. Do you understand? So because we can, like you said, if there's shops like what's happening now, you can get ganja in a shop, regulated. Your focus is not on the user, but you're gonna find these people that's not regulated selling it, and those are the ones that you can go to. So there is a risk involved when it comes to decriminalize, but that's what I'm saying. If we get it right, focus on all the right things, it can work.
Yeah.
I think from my side, safe spaces, if that happens, safe spaces where users can be, and to avoid overdose, and many other risk factors, So safe spaces can be created around the communities, where users would go in. There is a health practitioner there that will guide how people are using and everything. We'll have less, fatality, because currently, it's very bad. Yeah. So I think if regulated, create safe spaces, and then have relevant people in these spaces that will, oversee. Yeah.
I'm also in for decriminalizing. On my side, my understanding is that if something is hidden, so you'll find lots of people trying to get into it.
Yeah.
Using the back doors, doing it in a wrong way, and so on. But if it's being decriminalized, you see, people, they would understand, you see, how you use it, for example, as he's saying, and so on. I will speak about, for example, iganja, for example. Most of traditional health practitioners, they need to use iganja, not for smoking it, for example, to manufacture soaps for skin, to do herbs for asthma, and so many. So if you decriminalize but you regulate it, then that would help. Yes.
I'm just thinking about the point that you made earlier. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. But you were saying something about the parents saying no. And if the parent says no, then it makes you want to do it.
Yeah.
And if the parent is a bit more understanding, then, there's a shift.
Correct.
But I'm coming to you. What's your point?
Well, I just want to say, off the cuff, I might say 100%, 200% decriminalize of all substances. I'm not going to pull punches around that. I am 100% clear in my head that the more we criminalize anything, we create the problem, and we expound on the problem. So it makes it worse. So if we had regulation or decriminalization of all substances, we will see a lot more, like Herbert had said earlier, of the focus shift towards helping rather than punishing. So because things are criminal, whilst things are still criminalized, we have a lot more people not able to get out of their rut of the socioeconomic divide or scenario that they're finding themselves in because they got a criminal record. If we shifted some of our criminologist budget towards harm reduction or towards healing or therapy or treatment. My goodness, just take 10% of it. I think Sean Shelley was with TBHIV Care. He also did this, and he showcased how just 10% of that budget will start seeing what we saw happen in Holland, where prisons, I think it was 12 of the 17 prisons completely not used. Why? Because they stopped criminalizing people.
Yeah.
And the model we see in Portugal stems a lot from what happened with the Prime Minister of Sweden, where he started opening up safe using spaces. It's almost like this beacons of hopes. Now, this would be too radical, but to say every church or mosque is this beacon of hope. Here's a safe space for you to come and use. I'll pause there. But what happens was with that, and what KG is saying is, when you have the safe using space, you open up the door for them to come in, and they're not hiding away to do it. That's the one thing. The other is you have an order as a captive audience that can now be spoken to and assisted. And also their family starts to see. And then your church becomes the beacon of hope that even though the user started the coming, the family will come too. I guarantee that will be the ripple effect. But my real push is for legal regulation of all substances. Now that's, I haven't made that public yet. And now I'm saying it, we're hearing it at Nakosa for the first time. And for me, the rationale behind the D's is like Lukholo was saying, it's the moment you push things underground or hiding it away, you're creating a market for it. Our gang community is thriving on the market because it is still illegal. If you were to make nappies illegal, it will be sold on the black market. It's the same like during COVID. People was paying 200 Rand for a packet of cigarettes.
Exactly.
You pushed it underground and you created a market for illegal sale of it. And so the same with anything else. If you regulate it legally, there will be less contamination of that item that you are buying. So if you buy a packet of sweets, if you buy this horrible energy drinks, you know exactly what's in it. So, and the same with alcohol, you'll know exactly how much percentage you'll know. So the legal regulation will help us to be able to shift into that kind of almost new way of thinking. And I'll stop by saying this. There's a research that was done by Dr. Bruce Alexander. I don't know if you've seen it, but I mean, he talks about the rat park. And he says you put a rat in a cage or a mouse in a cage and you give him a heroin-laced water and normal water. Inevitably, almost every time the rat would die just using the heroin-laced water. And then he said there's a problem with this theory because you've got this cage and you've got just 1, 2. So he's 2 options. There's nothing else for the rat to do but to drink either one water or the other water. And this one gave him a lekker feeling, so he kept doing it until he died. He says, let's change the cage. And he says, let's make the cage bigger. And when he did that, he says, let's put lots of mice in there. They can have sex with each other. They can have the toys in there. There's enough cheese, but also put the heroin water in. He says it's like Portugal's model that has now shown us that almost 100% overdose had stopped. And it was high at one point. But when they changed to this decriminalization, we saw a shift in it. With Rat Park, in Dr. Bruce Alexander's theory, he says they would use the heroin-laced water periodically, but maybe just to be able to have more fun. They'll go back into their park. There's enough running mills and wheels and dirt, and they would have fun, but none of them would die. And we've got a problem in that our cage is wrong. We're still pushing people into houses, into boxes. We need to open up so that the community can become the parent, but we'll only get it right if we think differently. Ikram or legal regulation.
Look at you taking us out. So I want to end off by asking, what can an ordinary person, like we started with the average community member, what do they know, what do they understand? So now having heard this important messaging that we've discussed today, what can they do tomorrow to shift the narrative?
Take the locks off the church doors. Government needs to step in, or we need to get a very wealthy donor we need a lot more psychoeducation hotspots where we can provide this on a regular and take into consideration that not all people are unemployed, so it's not just during the week. Must be weekends, and maybe it must even be on a day that we have prayers on a Friday at the mosque or church on a Sunday, so that we can have a captive audience, but teach them the other picture. You know, like we talk about the illness of addiction being very likened to that of insulin and diabetic. So somebody that suffers from diabetes needs his insulin. So if they don't have the insulin, what could happen? They could die. Sugar spikes, everything goes wrong. But do we treat the diabetic as an evil person? The very start of this conversation, is that diabetic patient an addict? He absolutely is, the same as an addict is in our context, because he's using a needle all the time. He's got a harm reduction outcome. But the two in the medical fraternity is an illness of the brain. It's a liken to each other. And it's research has shown that, it's proven, but we don't treat that person the same we do this person. And because there is the stigma removed here, and here with the drugs, the stigma remains. So, you know, if we can shift that, it will see a big shift in the criminality, our infrastructure damage, the poor household, you know, conditions. All of it will shift, guaranteed. I believe it in my heart and in my head as well. If we see a lot more education.
Yeah. No, I agree with Ashley about education. As I have said earlier, that maybe harm reduction must become part of a curriculum, you know, prevention. You know, we get them while they are still young, you know. Currently, we are more reactive more than we are preventative, you know. Yeah, so I think with more awareness, more education, and resources to do that, you know, we need money, you know, we need donors. Because imagine if this would be shown in an advert, in a TV, you know, I mean, such, you know, awarenesses and so on. You get into a clinic, for instance, you know, you can get a pamphlet, you can get a big, you know, something like this, you know, that is giving information about harm reduction and so on, you know. Because I think the more people see it, the more they will get familiar and be, you know, and want to know about it. Yeah. So more education, more awareness, and yeah.
Any final points from you, Herbert?
So the same as Ashley and Khulula when they said, it's you know, awareness, education, it's really important. I'm always thinking of myself on where I was before, before my studies and everything, and going through, you know, my social work. I didn't know any of these things, and always thinking back there, what does our community know? What is our, so a lot of awareness, a lot of education, and they'll open up just as I've opened up. So you know,
Yeah, knowledge is power.
yeah.
I think mine is for individuals to challenge themselves, to want to know more. Yes, resources are needed, funding is needed, but in the meanwhile, let's make use of what we have as individuals. I'll talk about traditional health practitioners. People watch lots of TikToks and so on, and you'll find that most of that is not benefiting themselves. So if they can start searching for harm reduction, reading more about the issues of substance and so on, using the resources that we have, so you equip yourself for your family, but also for the community as well. For that, you don't need much. You just need to call few young people, and then you sit down with them, and then you talk about these things. So that's what I would say. And of course, with the traditional health practitioners as well, I understand that we are kind of reserved as traditional health practitioners because we want to stick to our traditional ways of doing things and so on. I think we should now start being flexible, knows that things are evolving, things are changing in the community. We've got challenges that are not really traditional practitioner related, but it's a societal thing. So if we can play that role as traditional practitioners and not only be seen as traditional, but somebody who is equipped in the community who can assist with some of the psychosocial challenges, I think that will be great, because we see lots of clients, because we can run away. Over 78% to 80% of the community, they see traditional health practitioners, whether they go to the Western, but they still come and concerned.
And I think it's very important, because the take-home message for everyone today who's listening or watching is that this is your community. It's not it's like Herbert said, people say it's like it's other, that's a them problem. This is a you problem, So take accountability, equip yourself, get other people involved, and just take accountability.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, what is your say it anyway? I'll throw it out, like we started, and I just want to hear. It doesn't have to be like on or anything. Just what is your say it anyway?
I think I've said mine. I think, those are my final inputs.
I'll say this as a statement of intent. I love addicts. I absolutely love them. I can't see how others can't love them. And I think if we had a lot more love in our hearts for those struggling, we would see a big shift in their behavior and their desire to use you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, for me, I would say harm reduction saves lives. Therefore, the community needs to be sympathetic and empathetic towards the people who are using substance. That's
Herbert.
So weird that this thing is coming up in my mind was when you were saying we should do this now, because when I was in my third year in Stellenbosch, this thing just came up and it just said, in dark times, we are all the same. So it's not nice being in that dark space, and people, when they are othering, they remove themselves from that dark space. Everybody goes into that dark space, and so it's part of us. Jumping. Yeah.
You see what you just said reminds me one day in Cape Town, we're driving as a team. Our clients, they wash like on the street. A person will take a bath like that. And then I asked the guys in the car, why are you not the one who is doing that? And there was an answer that, okay, it's his choice. He's there, But for me, the difference between myself, that person is me, basically. Now the question, why am I not there washing on the street, humiliating myself like that? I think it goes back to church. It's by the grace of God that I am on this side. I am not the one who's using substance and who's washing himself or bathing on the street, not caring what everyone is. Yeah, so what I want to say, I am that person. Then if you would treat a person like that, then you would be able to, you would want to be treated the way you want to be treated by the other person, So I am a substance user.
So that's why in traditional healing, we say that those people that are there, they're protecting us. Because a lot could have come to us, but they are sacrificed within our families to be there. So we need to support them. We need to love them, because a lot that they are doing, it's what we're supposed to be doing. But then they became kind of a sacrifice within the family. So we need to support them. You need to be there with them. When they're asking for money, we shouldn't say that they're taxing us, because we know that within our families, not all of us will be empowered. So those that are empowered for everybody to support, whether the person is drinking, taking drugs, and so on. So you should see that person as your protector. So you need to protect and support that person.
Oh, I have a question. What is? I have an answer. I want to just pose it because I want people to be, pushing themselves. What is the opposite of addiction? What does the opposite of addiction look like? So there's a portion of this Johan Hari's theory, and just Google it. It says everything we know about drugs is wrong. You'll see a TED talk of Johan Hari come up, but he says at the end of it, he says the opposite of addiction is not recovery. A lot of people would think it is healed, quote unquote. But the opposite of addiction is not recovery. It's not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
And it's how do we bring people together? Because it's in there being apart that they're not seeing that they belong.
Keep taking us.
I'm going to zip up.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversations that we had. I feel it's so important. And I can't wait to just hear all the feedback, from everybody who's listening, because we're closing the gap with what we're doing here. And that's what's important. We're reaching the people in the residential areas that don't want to be reached. We are reaching them. They have no choice. They have to listen. So I appreciate you all so much for being here and just engaging with me. It's been wonderful.